Hey Tyrell, just replying to your video, and I've got a lot to actually unload, so I'm just gonna jump into it. So first of all, yes, insults should always be a no-go, especially when they're petty ones with labels such as someone being a racist or a pedophile. Yes, if you disagree with someone, you should be able to state your opinion, and you shouldn't act like a child about it. A few things about that though: if you've ever heard talk radio or you follow really almost any other kind of hobby that people like, whether it's sports or types of music. But yes, I will definitely, definitely agree with you that it happens a lot in the anime community. And there's a lot to be said about that. But I do, off the bat, want to say yes, nobody should be attacked for disagreeing with someone or for feeling a certain way about the anime. I agree with you on that. I'll get more into that in a little bit. But I do want to say, when you start off the video, you said you believe that pretty much anyone who's said good things about journeys consistently, they're doing it because, they make money from this. And what I can say is, one or two of the people that I know for a fact are becoming full time streamers, they have said when they thought the episode wasn't great. So one example, would be Lumios trainer Zach. He said recently he's going to become a full time streamer, and that's fine. But the recent episode he gave a 4, so mediocre. I've seen other PokeTubers give the recent episode a much higher rating, which I wouldn't give it personally, but an 8 or a 9. And I also know they're not making, at least if they are making money, it's not enough to live off of it. So already there, you're making a claim that, oh, it sucks, and it sucks so much that you have to be, just trying to provide for your family to actually like something. You're digging at people there. So just calling that out, because as I'll get into with more of these points, it's not just you, but a lot of people in the community will do that. You'll rightfully be upset when someone attacks you, which is extremely immature for the 5th time, but you'll go on from there to do backhanded attacks like that, because you're implying there that, oh, if someone likes it and they're not making money, there must be something wrong with them because it's just so bad. So your video title in your tweet announcing this, saying that, the show is trash and you're going to go after it. Again, yeah, that's your opinion. But the big point you're making in this video is basically that people should be mature and agree to disagree. But you're starting this whole video off as an attack. And yeah, I agree. People should be able to, hear these things and not get, too hyped up about it. I'll get more into that. Let's see. You're saying Journey objectively sucks, and yeah, I already pointed that out. I don't want to get off topic, but I am unloading a little bit of some of my opinions, and I can always make more videos about this. But the first one is, again, you state as a fact before jumping back into don't attack me for my opinions. Instead of saying that you feel or you think that, you're saying objectively Go sucks. And the journey sucks, and I think you said something about the pacing. Again, could go into this in another video. I think Go should have been differently. When Ash met him, he was already a Poke know-it-all. So why didn't they just have it so when he met Paul, who almost had all the same, he had almost the same goals completed as Ash, competed in several leagues, had all the known badges, even the frontier symbols except for Paul's, Brandon's. Why then not have Go already have pretty much every regional Pokemon, maybe even a few legendaries, except for Galar, and so that's another issue with journeys in general. They should have spent more time in Galar. They didn't. It would have been better to see Go catching all these Pokemon and being consistent about that instead of dropping it halfway through the narrative with Project Mew. If these were Pokemon we had never seen before animated, it would have been much more exciting. The problem is, in the first place, they were saying catch 900 slain Pokemon in X amount of time. People said, well, we don't enjoy seeing Go catch 10 Pokemon per episode. For example, every bug from Kanto. That's not entertaining. So they dropped the idea. And they decided to go with Project Mew. They probably could have kept Project Mew and kept that interesting too if the pacing and consistency with Go catching things were better. Again, especially if he had every other region crossed off. Now the pacing with Journeys is a mess. And here's the thing. When Journeys began, I remember a lot of people, including the community you're involved in, not saying you, were a lot more patient and forgiving with it. I was worried as far back as episode 3. And this is to show I'm not some kind of blind fan. But I was concerned with the episode where Ash and Go run into the Ivysaur and the Bulbasaur. And the big reveal at the end was the Venusaur, and I was like, we've already had this. It was Bulbasaur's Mysterious Garden. This would have been a perfect opportunity if they're going to be showing old Pokemon, because they are traveling around the world, to bring Ash's Bulbasaur back in the least. If not, at least have it evolve. Or Ash mention it. That didn't happen. And I knew we were going to have some issues. Again, some promising things at first. Here we had the Ho-Oh episode not too long after that. Well, long story short, Ash didn't see Ho-Oh again. That wasn't resolved in canon. I'm not talking about the non-canon movies. We just hear about, how the grandpa had seen it. Oh, great. Then we had the episode where some of Dawn's Pokemon, the species, were a big important part. What a tease. They're traveling around the world. Maybe they'll see Dawn. That didn't happen. These episodes, early ones, were a waste of time. Also, with the World Coronation series, as cool of an idea as it is, not a huge fan that instead of fighting Surge for a second bell, kind of waste of time though, he fought Ash fought one of Surge's, Goonies. Again, early on, I was very disappointed with what Journeys could have been and what it was turning into. However, it has gotten better, specifically since around last December. A lot of episodes. At one point, it was seeming almost every episode was a knockout of the park. I'll make another video at some point if people want to hear me rant about these things. I won't go into the rant right now, but I will allude to the fact that I think it's unfair when they do what people want and bring characters back. Some people in the community have said, well, that just shows that Journeys can't stand up on its own, and it has to fall back on past characters. The whole point of the story has been traveling the world. Now, the episodes where they return could be written better. And I'll be the first to say the pacing has not been good. And on top of that, the idea originally of, an episode standing alone, which they kind of always did. Think of all the fillers, some notorious ones in Johto specifically. As soon as they introduced that, I knew there would be trouble. The reason I went off topic here and talked about some things is just because I do want to show I'm not blindly supporting this. But here we go, getting back on topic. So some people get into it as kids or follow it as a community. I found your channel in 2010 when you were an adult. Yes. So, and that's all true. I was a kid when, I first found out about Pokemon. Although at the time, if you were in middle school and you liked Pokemon, that was something was wrong with you. Whatever. Anyway, and yes, since you're actually the one who started this trend with me, so when Unova came out, I found your channel, and I thought it was fun to see your comments about things. Later on, towards the end of Kalos, I was talking to my sister and a long-distance friend of mine about it, and that was about it. Until I found KG's channel, Dean's, the Chornick, and Tyrone. And by the time Alola came around, they had started, a real community that I was aware of. I'm sure there's more. And I've been following throughout the current series with the Pokepod and the Championship Elite channel. So I do want to say something about that, though. Again, you're making a grand statement. Sure, some people might have been kids when they got into it, but what about people in college who, they never gave Pokemon a chance, but some of their friends are talking about it, even people out in the workforce. New game comes out, one of their friends is like, oh, I didn't do anything special, I just bought a game. Oh, what'd you buy? Oh, it's Pokemon. It's like, Pokemon, isn't that for babies? And then they try it, and then maybe they try it at the show, and maybe something about it they like. You're making generalizations here. And no, not everyone does have to enjoy a community. I mean, I wasn't aware of any community in the Diamond Pearl days, Hoenn, before that. So yes, Twitter is full of immature people. Yeah, it's Twitter. And we can say this about plenty of adults on Twitter, but it's Twitter. Kind of like, Twitch or Tumblr. Here's what I'll say, having just said what I said. All right, here we go. There are exceptions. But The chances are, if you're an adult in your 20s, especially late 20s, 30s, 40s, and you enjoy the Pokemon franchise, and you enjoy it to the point that you make your presence online known about it, and you do actively watch the show. Again, there are definitely many exceptions, but there is a good possibility there might be something emotionally immature about you. So that was kind of the hot button statement. But you probably are dealing with a lot of immature people. It'd be worth looking into their family lives, their social lives, or lack of, or other issues that they've had following them throughout their lives. But, when you are dealing with people that are immature, it's important to keep this in mind. A lot of these fans are children, not just adults. You should know your audience. So let's think of it this way. Let's say the Pokepod community was a basketball community, and you talked about basketball games every week, what's going on in the NBA. But then you had one or two people in the group who would start not only dunking, pun intended, on different players, but they would dump on the whole sport. They'd be like, the NBA sucks now. It just sucks. It's terrible. And let's say the entire audience you had were immature NBA fans. Do you really think you could do this for every week for years on end? Ongoing, every single week, dunking on something that they love? Of course not. Imagine if, let's use another example. Let's say you guys were metalheads, and it's the same thing. Every single week, people who are die-hard metal fans, and they liked what you guys have said, some of you just consistently were ripping the genre and saying, it sucks now, it sucks now. If these are adults who are emotionally adjusted, sure, they might just drop you guys, honestly, but a lot of people are going to get angry. And I'm just surprised that you guys are so, in response to that, so emotionally hostile. I mean, you should know your audience. It's a key thing is being an entertainer. And you guys are entertainers by default. YouTube channels, Twitch channels. Maybe you're not huge celebrities, but in some people's circles, you guys are, you guys are celebrities in that sense. It's a similar thing I've seen with, history podcasts or things like that. Anyway, every week the opinions have been consistently bad by some members of the community. Consistently, fans who like the show enough don't want to hear what they love being bashed all over the place, especially when some points are questionable. And this is a key thing. I'm not trying to get anyone upset, but I will name drop a few times. So, no, Tyrell, you're not the only person who's had these opinions. But Tyrone has been one. And here's the thing. Sometimes I think he'll make good points. Look at the things I complained about with Journeys. I think sometimes, though, he comes in with a bias that he doesn't like Journeys, and he's not going to like it. And I think compared to any other region he's ever watched, it's going to be harder for it to always get to a point where it gets over the threshold where he says anything that isn't completely negative at all, as opposed to saying, well, I didn't like this or that. And the thing is, when he's shared these opinions, he's sounded, at least, very angry. I actually skipped his opinion about the latest episode because it was very long. I knew what he was going to go for because I've listened to the Pokepod on and off throughout the last few years. But again, when someone loves something and they hear someone who is also a fan getting angry with their opinions and going on very long rants, sometimes 10, 20 minutes, it's going to get to them. And, on top of that, like I said, I just can't think of the last time he said he liked an episode, and when he didn't like it, he didn't say something that came off as insulting or really, really going at. And people don't want to hear something like that from something that they love. Let's see. Fans who like the show enough don't want to hear what they love being bashed all over the time. Okay, yeah. And here's the other thing. It might just be that, people in general, but Tyrone is getting older. I take it he's in his late 20s, early 30s. It might just be he's living at a point in his life where the Pokemon anime doesn't do for him what it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And there's nothing wrong with that. People grow, people change, their interests change. But I think about that when I hear his opinions. It just sounds more and more often like someone who he's watching something that isn't a fit for him in his life. The response to the hate has been kind of childish. I understand you guys are all friends, you're going to defend each other, but some of the responses I've seen have been one level above childish compared to the very childish things I hear people have said to you guys. And, you know, you guys have a platform to call out people, so you have a more powerful tool. And that's definitely been showing. I do have a few examples of older Pokemon fans who, as far as I'm aware of, aren't really involved in any kind of community. They have fans they'll talk to, but they're not very involved in a community. And whether or not they watched it as a kid and they still are, that's up in the air. But here's some. Professor Alex Silver, very, very polished. Another person, Charu Sharu. He's a guy called Charles who moved to Japan. Big thing about him is he has been very supportive of Journeys. I don't know how much he's been making in revenue, but he hasn't blindly been a fan of it, and he has pointed out things that he's been upset about. But what he does very well is he reports what other people are thinking. He looks at the polls, especially Japan, and I think that pays off really, really well for him, honestly. And again, these are very emotionally adjusted adults in their 30s. Last channel, DeGraw. So it's a husband and his wife, or boyfriend, girlfriend. Long story short, the girlfriend never watched Pokemon growing up. They're not involved in a community. And she started watching episodes with him to post their reactions. And they actively respond to the comment sections in their channels. But again, I don't see any sign of this kind of visceral hatred towards negative feedback, as nasty as the negative feedback is. So, like I was saying, no offense. I like you, Tyrell. Don't dislike anyone in the community. I really liked your early Unova videos. And, you know, like I was saying, KG, Tyrone, back in the day, Chornik and Dean during the Kalos era, the videos that they made were good supplements to watching the show. And other people have come since then. Some of other people have faded away. And, you know, he's not the only person, but the one who has stood out the most has been Tyrone. I do want to say some of the earliest videos I liked about him were him complaining about things, and I agreed with him on it. Like the video he made about, what's his face? Gakoga fainting in the Kalos League. And it was a great video. He made very good points about why that shouldn't have happened. He also made another one about the Frieza knockoff in the Dragon Ball Super tournament, and about how, you know, the writers made it in a way that we can't ever trust any one Frieza species. But they kind of teased that, oh, maybe we could, but then there was a betrayal. And I really liked his video about, you know, how he was talking about how that kind of in-universe racism was predictable, it was nasty, and I love a lot of his videos. So like I say, I'm not attacking any of you guys, so lest I become the target of anyone who, you know, is black and whiting this. Just wanted to make that clear. The latest episode, here's what I would say, because it's important to this. It's an example. I did see several PokeTubers give an episode 8 or a 10. I would not give it that. I agree, it was rushed. I also agree it was disrespectful to Alan's character. I don't even like Alan. However, here's what I will say. A friend of mine who has not watched the Pokemon anime since Kalos, he said very disparaging things to say about Journeys himself, even though he's never watched an episode. He's even several times said, oh, it looks like a show for babies. Anyway, he is a fan of the franchise, the games, and he has heard me out when there have been important episodes. I'm like, hey, do you want to hear about Ash's journey? Like, he won a league in Alola. He's getting close to possibly defeating Leon. And my friend's been up to that. I talked to him about the latest episode, and even he agreed with something that I was thinking in the back of my mind. It's not the way I would have written it, but perhaps the writers were just trying to instill in us that Leon is that powerful. The guy who barely defeated Ash in the Kalos League was crushed by Leon. And maybe it's not the best way to write a story, but the whole point of the episode was to have people, you know, really excited for what's coming up. And that really, you know, hammers it home when you have a 2-week gap until the next episode. I'm nervous about the semifinals and finals just being 3v3s. I'm nervous that the next few episodes, the battles might be rushed, and you might have the same power scaling. Hopefully, though, for a narrative reason, that doesn't happen. And this was an episode where it was written poorly enough that more people had negative things to say about it than others. But again, that was from a friend of mine who doesn't even watch the series, and he was playing devil's advocate. So, again, when I hear the responses made, by members in the community who have really big star power, and they're just ostensibly saying, it sucks, not I disliked it, or this is why I disliked it, the pacing, the writing, it upsets people. Let's see. Almost near the end here. I don't remember who it was. There was somebody in a Pokepod episode like 3 or 4 weeks ago who basically said that SpongeBob was of the same equivalence of Pokemon as far as a story or something, which is, ridiculous. I'm sure they exist, but you don't tend to have in SpongeBob the amount of, and the success of some of the communities you have with the Pokemon anime. And it's insulting to the fans to say that. And yes, it is a show for kids, but you can say with a lot of things that were brought up, Yu-Gi-Oh!, other things. The fact is, Pokemon the anime has always been a show, and Charo, that YouTuber, he brought up this point too. He made a whole video about it. The Pokemon anime, yeah, it's a kid's show, but it's the same kid's show that had episodes where like Ash almost died with his Pokemon in the snow. Look at the first episode. The Spearow almost killed Ash and Pikachu. It does have mature episodes. It does have mature themes that makes it stand out, which makes it so when I was in middle school, it stood out to me. And it stood out to me compared to things I was just dumping all around because I was getting to the point I felt too old for it. I was aging out of Nickelodeon. So it's just objectively silly to say, oh yeah, it's the same level as SpongeBob. Again, you have to look that up. It was a few Pokepods ago. Someone said it. I'm not sure who it was. And it just makes me think, I know that there are friendships involved, but if you don't like this, especially the members of the Pokepod who haven't been watching the show, I don't really know what you're sticking around for and sharing your opinion for in the segment that you guys talk about the show. Because, again, you're just criticizing something or listening on something you're not interested in. Your choice in time. But, yeah. Escapism. It was brought up that, yes, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, things like that. You brought up something about it's escapism for people. Yes, it is. A lot of people, they get home and they're exhausted and they want something to escape in. This isn't really a you thing, but it's kind of a pet peeve I've always had. Because my dad would say this a lot when I was growing up and playing video games. Especially as he really had for fantasy genre, anything, or anime. Anything where someone does something they can't do in real life. And for me, it's always been like, why is it escapism? Exactly. If it's something you do for entertainment. How is it more of escapism than when I'm reading history books? I mean, I teach history for a living. But is it escapism when I'm going into a world of a place a long time ago? Or with people around the world, different places? Or watching cooking shows or traveling videos? Escapism? If you have a hobby where you woodwork or you garden, is that escapism? Or is it something you like? Because escapism is mentality. You're trying to get away from the house around you, from the world around you. But sometimes you might just like to do something, and it's not escapism. The reason I bring that up is because it's an argument being made that people who enjoy this franchise are sheltered people who are cocooning themselves, and they're so overly sensitive about something they like being criticized. But I do want to point out it's not always escapism to enjoy something and spend time talking about it. So, with my time in the past, one of the people in your comment section said they dropped the show after Battle Frontier. So did I. I was pretty disgusted with the power reset of Ash losing to Gary. And yes, since then I've seen some good videos analyzing that. And then losing to Paul, who at the time, without subtitles, I thought was just a brand new trainer, like the Trip situation. So I dropped it. Anyway, after college, I picked it up again because there was kind of a lull going on that summer before any employment picked up. And I had been told in college, I know you're upset with some things, but Diamond Pearl is actually a really good series. I agree. Storytelling-wise, it's one of the best. And I was sucked in by episodes, with Paul or big Jim Bell episodes, and the fillers kind of came in naturally because they weren't nearly as bad as Johto or something. And so I was watching it, and it eventually, out of order, all fit in. Unova wasn't great. I stuck around partly because of people like you and people in my life, like the long distance friend. My sister started watching again, so it was fun to talk about. We adored Kalos. And Alola, I wasn't a fan of, honestly. There were some good episodes, picked up in the end. The league was great. But it was definitely, that was a point in my life where it wasn't escapism, but it's like, I need 20 minutes to just zone out with things good and bad going on. And the current series I followed basically is because the promise of what could happen by the end of this series. And it has been nice to have, this online community to follow everyone's opinions. I mean, it ostensibly takes 20 minutes of my life to watch this show. But while I'm multitasking, so I'm listening to it as a podcast, that's what I do 90% of the time. So I'm outside and doing multiple things. I'll listen to people's opinions. So in a nutshell, that's my story, what I'm doing here. And what I can say is, from one fan to the other, I think it should be kept in mind that you are dealing with an audience that is going to get very hostile, and the response being a video saying, well, no, it does suck, it really, really sucks, and you're all really immature. Yes, they are, but again, think of who you're dealing with here. I don't think it's necessarily the best path to take. Almost done here. So maybe people have less racism now than they did with Iris. I don't really think it's that, as much as society is much more progressive, especially online now, than it was in 2010. And yes, there is the hypocrisy factor, but maybe there's some of the same people accusing people of not liking Iris because of racist reasons are some of the same kind of people with Go. But no, you're not a racist. I never really understood the whole sexism thing with Go. A lot of people have implied that with Go's design, you couldn't tell if he was a guy or a girl. I could tell from the get-go, and I don't think they've ever gone for anything less than that. But whatever. So you were saying trolling to F with people in response. Again, if a childish bully is giving you a hard time, is the best response to do it right back to them? No. I mean, we're adults here. I'm talking to you as an adult, people in the Pokepod community. Let's see. Gone worse in what ways compared to Kalos? I mean, all I can say is, the current series is not as good as Kalos, but I do think some of the recent 10 out of 10s that a lot of PokeTubers have given it, 4 episodes from the last 3 or 4 months, are well deserved. And looking at Lumiose Trainer's Zach's ratings, this series is, they really would have to mess this up with the World Coronation series and Project Mew and major things happening between now and November, but it's just 2 episodes behind of having the most 10 out of 10s compared to any other series. So you should definitely keep that in mind. I'm not saying that maybe it's, just an issue of taste or some kind of bias on his part, positive bias for Journeys, but that should be kept in mind. I would definitely say Kalos, as far as an action or shonen anime, was the best series. Diamond Pearl with writing, and Kanto with just originality, like original fun stories. You made the point about staying friends with someone. Will you be on Discord till 6 for the rest of your life, and then friends drifting? Yes. It's like that with anything, with any community. Many years ago, when Pokemon first came out, over one summer, I was part of a Pokemon community. It was a message board. And here's the hard fact, though. A lot of us did drift off when we lost the glue of Pokemon. So I think there are some people who are concerned about maintaining those friendships. Rightfully so, though, because drifting did happen. And some of us have remained friends, even without that topic. Most of us, though, many years later just, grew up and, like you said, went different ways in life. The friend of mine that I brought up, long distance, met on that message board, hung out a few times IRL, talk every week after a few years of silence since 2010. A lot of times we don't talk about Pokemon. Sometimes we do. But I wouldn't invalidate people being worried about, sticking to the script if they want their community to stay intact, because communities do stay and go. I hope you guys do stay friends for years to come, and whether that involves Pokemon or not. So anyway, with that said, sorry you got the brunt of this, but a lot of these things, such as how I felt about journeys in general, which were side points, this has been building up for years. And the last few weeks, though, just seeing the response that you guys have had with criticism, just felt the need to respond to that. All right, have a good one.